Pirates are something along with dinosaurs and ninjas that I consider to have grown out of decades ago. That being said, I do like me some free meals, so I suppose I could try a freebie sample from something romanticizing nautical thievery, though a commercial HD version is available. So let's take a look at a cute point-and-click adventure from 2007, Nelly Cootalot, Spoonbeaks Ahoy!
The main creative force is stand-up comedian Beckett-King, who has written other adventure games like Unforeseen Incidents, Feria de Arles, and Mutropolis, but is perhaps best known to wider audience from his short genre parody videos like Every Single Scandinavian Crime Drama. His debut video game work did make an impression on adventure game studio community, as it managed to win a couple of awards in that year's AGS Awards ceremony, including the best game and dialogue writing. So this game must have done something special. Who is special for sure is our title character, who is contacted by the ghost of the legendary pirate captain Bloodbeard, who tasks her to find out what happened to Spoonbeak birds that all went missing nearby the Barony of Meath. Thus Nelly Cootalot, the most fearsome and nicest of all pirates, springs into action. I said springs into action.
This is one of those point-and-click adventures. You know, the ones where the pacing is on more slower tempo due to focusing on one puzzle where you have to solve a series of smaller puzzles in order to open the next story beat. However, when applied correctly, like in this case, it creates a chill, mellow vibe that gives more room for taking in all the funny jokes and dialogues and events. And besides, this game takes only like 2 to 3 hours, so the story rhythm is better than most.
Some of the other important fellows are the island's self-absorbed ruler Baron Whitebeard, who assures he has nothing to do with anything involving Spoonbeaks, and Bloodbeard's familiar Sebastian J. Coote, whose polite yet dry humor brings out some of the writing's best singular gags. Generally, the style of comedy consists of puns and references, but even if it's not as sophisticated as some of Mr. Beckett-King's later works, it has few clever moments and characters can be entertaining enough. Nelly herself is a delightful main character, so ready to be fierce yet comes out wholesome instead.
The mellow atmosphere is supported by a charmingly amateurish graphical style that is very children's storybook-esque. Also, the music composed by AGS community cult composer Mark Lovecraft, while being that MIDI-heavy, is in its adventurous mood fitting for the jovial tone.
But the puzzles, and they also follow this general good quality. Most of the time. Solutions can be rather out there, but the pattern leading to them is logical when you stop to think about it, and while bowing down to old school adventuring, the game's brain nuts aren't cruelly cryptic. That is until this monstrosity where you have to decipher a pirate code, and that needs expert level knowledge of the conventions of English language. Even the walkthrough I found admitted a piece of paper meant to be the key to it is entirely useless. Also later in the game there's this reaction-based minigame on a gameplay ill-fitted for reaction-based stuff.
And the last puzzle is quite a conundrum as well, but other than those hiccups, Nelly Cootalot, Spoonbeaks Ahoy! Is a quaint little adventure that managed to win at least me over. So much so, in fact, that when it got a commercial sequel in 2016, I had no problem with pouring my cash on it. So let's see if glory befalls on Nelly Cootalot, the Fowl Fleet.
Mr. Beckett continues as the soul and wit, but has this time left project directing duties to Volker Ritschhaupt, who would later direct/lead Unforeseen Incidents and Lamplight City. The game got its funding from Kickstarter 3 years earlier, and even though the campaign doesn't mention specific stretch goals, the cast did get them things the free outing didn't have. Oh, right, I should probably mention before we get further that the events continue almost right from the first game's ending, so spoilers may occur. Anyway, one of these new features includes voice acting, with the main character's voice only credited to herself. The first game's manual says Nelly is based on Mr. Beckett-King's girlfriend Rachel, so I assume it's her, and it's more underplayed than I'd prefer, but overall the performance is decent enough in its determined innocence.
I can't take the treasures. They belong to whoever stole them.
I've already showed you some of the game's new graphical style, and personally I'm not a fan of it. The environments are lusher, but the character models are too porcelain-like and have stiff movements, and their facial animations are limited. Granted, they were limited in Spoonbeaks Ahoy as well, but that game had a deliberate storybook-like aesthetic, so I could excuse that. Just to clarify, I don't think the game's graphics are bad, it just doesn't have that same charming punch to them.
In the story itself, Captain Bloodbeard, played by Timothy Block, is disappointed in Nelly's job performance because, even though she thwarted Baron Whitebeard's evil schemes, she didn't get a part-coded message that leads directly to his treasure. Instead, it's in the hands of Whitebeard and the Baroness, played by Toby Longworth and Samantha Baird respectively, and in order to get to the island where Bloodbeard's treasure is hidden, he has hypnotized an army of aerial fodder to do his bidding! And because Nelly didn't see that message, it means she has to do things the long way and follow Whitebeard's trail, including this first island she visits, that I don't think has anything of plot significance. Yeah, this game isn't as tightly packed what comes to plot rhythm, and considering it took me about 7 hours to beat, this could have been easily derailed into a snail-paced experience. What however prevents that from happening is the game's improved comedic writing that relies less on puns and references, and all sorts of wacky scenarios like the snooty nobleman racing game among others. Also the music, while repetitive, is mellow enough that it, along with the other things I mentioned, helps to veneer the atmosphere from boring to relaxed.
Many of the numerous side characters have one or two quirks that serve their purpose, as does many of their voice acting. But there are a few more stellar cases here and there, such as the returning pirate familiar Sebastian J. Good, played this time by TV star Tom Baker of Doctor Who fame. I'm sure some of you nerds got giddy on that piece of information. I've only seen like 3 episodes of that show, though I've heard his tenure in the title role was one of the better ones. His experience compared to the rest is evident when he turns Sebastian's dry wit and sophistication even further.
Sebastian, go and poo on their heads or something.
Nelly, I'm not going to poo on everyone you tell me to poo on. I poo when and on whom I please to poo on.
The next island, while not being the island where Nelly's supposed to be, actually starts to have plot-forwarding elements. Slowly, sure, but overall it is equally quaint with its predecessor. Puzzles are also funny as all, as there are 0 logic-bending abominations. Okay, this Chinese New Year calendar thing was tough to figure out first, but other than that, I felt satisfaction on being able to follow their logic patterns. Though I already had one playthrough under my belt from years ago.
Even the final puzzle was more enjoyable, a good example on how to do an action scene in a non-action game. Overall, Nelly Cootalot, the Fowl Fleet, is able to take the functioning formula of its predecessor and develop it further.
Spoonbeaks Ahoy has, despite its lower budget, a more cohesive vision for its audiovisual presentation that has been able to stand the test of time better. Sure, its successor's audiovisuals are competent, but as I mentioned before, my personal taste lean more towards the first game's naivistic style. However, when comparing which one is the overall better product, I value the Fowl Fleet higher, as both the writing and puzzles that were already stellar in the first game have been elevated here. Quality-wise, both of the Nelly games are near each other, and even if they have a formula and setting that are very familiar to genre enthusiasts, they have turned it into their advantage by offering something cozy.
I think I read from some Twitter posts that Beckett-King has interest towards making the third game for this series, but I have no idea if that's anything in any planned stage, or even necessary considering the second game wrapped all the loose ends. Now, if you excuse me, I shall go watch that Scandinavian crime drama thing for the 10th time.
Let me tell you about Nelly. Her name is widely feared, the only pirate with a name that doesn't end in beard. She hid inside a parcel as the postage boat set sail. Oh, it wouldn't be the last time she pretended to be male.
Delivered to Port Rubicon, takes everything she sees.